Yellowstone, a volcano of unthinkable power. Beneath the serene beauty of Yellowstone National Park lies a force of unimaginable power, a supervolcano. Its caldera, a vast, cauldron-like depression, stretches for miles, a silent testament to its violent past. This is no ordinary volcano. Yellowstone is a supervolcano, capable of eruptions thousands of times larger than anything witnessed in human history. Imagine the Earth, billions of years ago. Volcanoes were erupting everywhere. They were shaping the planet. These weren't the volcanoes we know today. These were supervolcanoes capable of unleashing unimaginable destruction. Yellowstone is a relic of that ancient, volatile time. The evidence is etched in the landscape. 3 times in the past 2.1 million years, Yellowstone has erupted with a fury that dwarfs anything humanity has ever experienced. These eruptions, spaced roughly 600,000 to 800,000 years apart, have reshaped continents and altered the course of life on Earth. The last super eruption, 640,000 years ago, ejected over 2,200 cubic kilometers of ash and rock into the atmosphere. That's enough to bury the entire state of Texas under 5 feet of debris. The question that haunts our dreams, the question that keeps scientists up at night is simple. When will Yellowstone erupt again? The Silent Watch monitoring a sleeping giant. Deep beneath Yellowstone, a magma chamber churns. It is a cauldron of molten rock stretching for miles. The heat is intense, the pressure immense. This is the heart of the beast. We can't see it, but we can feel its breath. The ground rises and falls, a gentle reminder of the power below. Earthquakes, some barely perceptible, others strong enough to rattle windows, are the heartbeat of the sleeping giant. Scientists, like modern-day shamans, listen to the Earth's whispers. They use an arsenal of instruments to monitor Yellowstone's every twitch and tremor. Seismometers, scattered across the park, act as sensitive ears, picking up the slightest vibrations in the Earth's crust. GPS stations track the ground's movement, detecting even the smallest uplift or subsidence. And thermal imaging reveals the heat flow from below, mapping the hidden plumbing of the volcano. The data paints a complex picture. Yellowstone is alive, a dynamic system in constant flux. The magma chamber breathes, expanding and contracting, as molten rock rises from the depths and gases bubble to the surface. The ground shifts, responding to the pressures below. It's a delicate dance between slumber and awakening. A day of fury. The immediate aftermath. Let's imagine the unthinkable. Tomorrow the ground beneath Yellowstone trembles with a violence not felt for millennia. The supervolcano awakens. The eruption begins with a roar that reverberates across the planet. A column of ash and gas explodes skyward, punching a hole in the atmosphere. The ash column climbs higher, reaching altitudes of 30 kilometers or more. The immediate vicinity of Yellowstone would become an inferno. Pyroclastic flows race across the landscape at hundreds of kilometers per hour. They are a superheated mix of ash and gas that incinerates everything in its path. Forests are vaporized in an instant. Towns and cities are reduced to rubble. The ash would rain down over an area of thousands of kilometers. It would bury everything in its path, collapsing roofs and turning the landscape into a grey wasteland. The air would become thick with ash and noxious gases, making it impossible to breathe without a mask. This is the reality of a supervolcano eruption. A blanket of darkness, global consequences. The eruption of Yellowstone would not be a local event. It would be a global catastrophe. The ash cloud carried by the jet stream would spread across the planet, blocking out the sun. The skies would darken, turning day into night. Temperatures would plummet. The world would be plunged into a volcanic winter. Imagine a world without sunlight. Crops would wither and die. Global food production would collapse. Millions, perhaps billions, would face starvation. The delicate balance of the global ecosystem would be thrown into chaos. Species would die off in droves. The planet would enter a period of mass extinction. The ash and sulfur dioxide injected into the stratosphere would have long-term effects on the climate. Sulfur dioxide, reacting with water vapor, would form sulfuric acid aerosols. These aerosols, reflecting sunlight back into space, would cool the planet for years to come. The impact on global climate would be far-reaching and unpredictable. Section 5, the domino effect, economic and ecological collapse. The eruption of Yellowstone would trigger a domino effect of global proportions. The immediate impact on human civilization would be catastrophic. Transportation systems would grind to a halt. Air travel would be impossible. Power grids would collapse. Communication networks would be disrupted. The global economy, already fragile, would collapse. The long-term effects would be even more devastating. The collapse of agriculture would lead to widespread famine. Water supplies would be contaminated. Disease would spread like wildfire. The fabric of society as we know it would unravel. The ecological impact would be equally severe. The sudden changing climate would disrupt ecosystems around the world. Species that are unable to adapt would die off. The delicate balance of nature would be thrown into disarray. Section 6. Predicting the unpredictable, the challenges of volcano forecasting. The question is not if Yellowstone will erupt again, it is when. But predicting the timing of a volcanic eruption is a notoriously difficult task. It is like trying to predict an earthquake. We know it will happen, but we don't know when or how severe it will be. Scientists use a variety of methods to monitor volcanoes and assess the risk of eruption. They track earthquake activity, ground deformation, gas emissions, and changes in heat flow. They also study the volcano's past eruptive history, looking for patterns that might provide clues about future eruptions. Despite these efforts, predicting volcanic eruptions remains an inexact science. Volcanoes are complex systems and their behavior can be unpredictable. There is no single reliable indicator that can tell us when an eruption is imminent. Section 7. Hope in the face of disaster. Preparing for a super-eruption. The possibility of a supervolcanic eruption may seem like a doomsday scenario. A disaster too big to comprehend, let alone prepare for. But even in the face of such overwhelming power, there is hope. We are not powerless. We can prepare. Scientists are constantly working to improve our understanding of volcanoes and our ability to predict eruptions. They are developing new technologies and techniques for monitoring volcanoes and analyzing data. The more we know about how volcanoes work, the better equipped we will be to anticipate and respond to eruptions. Governments and disaster management agencies are also developing plans for dealing with the aftermath of a super-eruption. These plans include everything from evacuating populations to providing food and shelter to establishing communication networks. Section 8. The enduring lesson, humility in the face of nature's might. The story of Yellowstone is a reminder of the awesome power of nature. It is a force that can both create and destroy, a force that we can study and admire, but never truly control. In the grand scheme of things, we are but a small part of a much larger system, a system that operates on timescales far beyond our comprehension. Yet there is beauty in this realization. It is a humbling experience to acknowledge our place in the universe, to recognize that we are not the center of all creation. It is a reminder to live our lives with humility, to appreciate the fragility of life and to cherish the moment. Section 9. Our future with Yellowstone. Living in the shadow of a giant. We will continue to live in the shadow of Yellowstone, just as we live with the knowledge that earthquakes can strike without warning, that hurricanes can devastate coastlines, and that asteroids can collide with Earth. These are the risks we face as inhabitants of this planet. They are the price we pay for living on a dynamic and ever-changing world. But these risks should not paralyze us with fear. Instead, they should inspire us to learn more about our planet, to develop new technologies to mitigate risks, and to work together to create a safer and more resilient future. The challenge is not to prevent natural disasters, but to learn to live with them, to adapt to them, and to emerge from them stronger than before. We are, after all, a species that has survived countless challenges throughout our history. We are a species capable of great ingenuity, resilience, and compassion, and it is these qualities that will ultimately determine our fate, not just as a species, but as a planet.